Hello and welcome to my channel Inspiring Life Changes. This is your new moon. Just move my hat around. Sorry about that. I just like to get that bit. This feels a bit more comfortable. This is a new moon reading for the new moon in Scorpio. It's a collective reading. So it's a reading for the collective, but again, it's a general reading, so it's not going to resonate with everybody out there, but it's kind of trying to look at the bigger overall picture of what this new moon will mean for us in the forthcoming 2 weeks. So I've laid the cards out already, and I'm using the Greek Mythic Tarot deck by Juliet Sherman Burke and Liz Green, which I particularly like, and I will be using the Gilded Tarot by Ciro Marchetti to clarify any of the cards that I feel could do with being clarified. So the new moon in Scorpio is happening either today or tomorrow, depending on where you are in the world. It's at 4 degrees Scorpio, which means that the sun and the moon are conjunct. They are together, and they are opposing, because the opposite of Scorpio is Taurus, Uranus, which is in Taurus at the moment, retrograde at precisely 4 degrees. So it's almost an exact opposition. New moon in Scorpio. Scorpio is all about the deeper, darker, hidden realm. It's ruled by Pluto, which rules over birth, death, rebirth, sexuality. There's sides of us that we don't want to show to the world, hidden things, secret things, things that that help us to kind of move on in certain situations, shall we say. I'm trying to find a good way to put this, but sometimes the kind of deeper and darker your personality and your energy is, the more you can progress with certain people in certain ways. So it's kind of highlighting all those issues at the moment as well. All these things are going to be brought to the surface, because that's really what the Scorpio moon is about. And because it's opposite Uranus, it could also bring huge change, sudden, unexpected, a bit like tower moments of just kind of things out of the blue happening. Uranus rules electricity, it rules the unknown, it's the maverick of the zodiac. It kind of has its own path and its own story and its own way of doing things. It can't really be kind of boxed in, shall we say. It kind of has a bit of a wildness to it, where you think something might be one way and then all of a sudden it's just kind of completely different. So watch out for changes that could come. There could be huge emotional shifts as well, maybe for the good, maybe for the worse, or depending on how you look at things in your life. And we have at the same time Mars squaring Saturn. Saturn, the planet of restriction, of structure, of keeping things the way that it wants to keep them. It kind of really is the story of our history, if you like, because Saturn is the last planet that we can see. So it rules the physical realm, it rules our skin and our bones, and it kind of holds everything in place. It's like the cement that keeps everything as it has been for a long time. So, and if you have any awareness of what's happening in 2020, from the big changes that are coming up there as well, Saturn is going to be a huge part of that. Saturn and Pluto will be joining together in 2020. But the Saturn square Mars aspect that's happening today at the same time as the new moon is also going to be Mars in Libra, which doesn't function very well there because Mars is a real action doing planet. It wants to get going, it wants to move and change things, and but not change things in the same way as Uranus. It's more kind of strategic, but it kind of likes to make its energy known, shall we say. And in Libra, it has to kind of hold itself back. And so with this square to Saturn at the same time, Mars is kind of being really restricted as to what it's able to do. And it's in the 7th house, which means that it's in the house of relationships. So there may be a lot of changes within relationships, also because of the moon and the whole emotional issues. And because Saturn also squaring kind of just wants to stop things from going ahead. It kind of, where Mars says, let's, like, you know, I've got the momentum, let's go. Saturn says, whoa, no, hold on, you know, not ready. Just whoa, slow down, take your time and just think things through. But because it's a square, it's a difficult angle. Squares are always difficult angles. So, and Mars is a powerful energy, and Saturn is known as a malefic as well. So they kind of always work through the adverse, as does Pluto, and the new moon being in the sign of Scorpio, which is ruled by Pluto, means that there could be some real kind of major upheavals, fireworks, kind of big events on the world stage as well, to do with things kind of kicking off. And if you look around the world at the moment, there's so many different protests happening as well, that there is an element of that already taking place. But anyway, to get on with the reading, I think that's probably enough astrology and as to why I'm doing the reading today. The first card that I pulled is the Three of Pentacles. And this is where collectively the world is at the moment. This is what's going on. And for me, the card is saying that sometimes we need to help each other out. If we're in a position of being able to help somebody out, then it's good to be able to work with somebody, because this is kind of a card of people working together, but also of rewards for having helped other people in the past. And I tend to think of this card as a bit like, it doesn't have to, like swings and roundabouts really, that it doesn't have to come from the same source. Just because this person here has helped somebody else out, it doesn't mean that that person then has to pay them back in the same way. And it also talks of the fact that it doesn't have to be about money either. This can be helping people out with kindness. This can be to do with helping people out if they're in a hard situation, showing that you care. It's not always just about money. And I think that that's kind of quite a strong message that we need to be aware of at the moment, especially the way that the monetary funds seem to be going at the moment. There could be a time when we're all going to have to come together kind of in a community spirit, I suppose, really. And this card came out over the top, the Eight of Cups, which for me is the epitome of the moon in Scorpio. You've got the moon here in the background, which, although it looks full there, it's in the background. And Psyche here is walking down into the realm of the underworld. She's piled up all these cups here, which are all about our emotions. Cups relate to water, and emotions. So this card would be to do with all the water signs, Cancer, Scorpio and Pisces. Whereas this card is more to do with earthy matters, things that are down to earth, the earth signs of Taurus, Capricorn and Virgo. But the reason this for me is the epitome of the moon in Scorpio is because this is very much a scorpionic realm, the underworld, going down into the depths, and she's going down into the depths of her emotions. This is what it symbolises here, and this is the challenge at the moment. We're all being asked to go deeper into our emotions, to dig deeper. And because it's Scorpio's ruled by Pluto, we don't really have a lot of choice at the moment. And over the next few weeks, as Mars moves forward and passes the square from Saturn, he's going to meet up with Pluto, and that will kind of bring this up again as well. So this kind of energy is going to be quite strong. And not to mention the fact that Mercury, of course, is going retrograde on the 31st, on Halloween. So there's this kind of long searching that's going to be going on. This long, Mercury's a bit like a detective in Scorpio. It goes deep, deep, deep down into our emotions, because Scorpio is all about emotions, being a water sign. So this card for me is talking about going down into the depths of our emotions, and it's over the top of this card as a challenge. This is our challenge at the moment, and this is the place that we don't really want to go. And I say it's the place we don't want to go because in our heads and what we are aware of is the Judgment card, calling the dead up to rise. And the dead often represents the situations in our life that have kept us in unwanted emotional places and keep us reacting from the same kind of energy. And normally, if it was up this way, I would say that this is about releasing these ghosts and these skeletons out of the cupboard and giving them over to Hermes, Mercury, so that he can go off and do his own thing. This is Mercury, and he is going to be retrograde, as I was saying, for the next 6 weeks. He's going to go retrograde on the 31st, and he will stay retrograde until November the 20th, I think it is, and then comes out of his shadow of being retrograde on 10th of December. So we've got a long period of time when Mercury is going to be going through Scorpio, and this is what's going to be taking place. But it's not something that we are particularly wanting to do, because who really wants to go and dig about in their past and kind of pull things out and resolve things? But it is going to be a bit like going into your attic in some ways, if you think of the attic as representing your subconscious self, and you kind of finding all sorts of things that you've totally forgotten were up there, some pleasant, some not so pleasant. So it's not always about finding, the bad. There's also good memories there as well. So, but this card for me is saying reversed. I don't particularly want to, as a collective, we don't particularly want to go there, but I think it's going to be interesting on the world stage, the things that are going to be coming out, because I don't think that everybody is aware of some of the situations and some of the skeletons and some of the ghosts that have been buried in the past that are going to come out, that are being called up. And there is a really strong resistance at the moment to let any of this out into the light, which is really where it needs to be, out. The light being represented by this little hole at the background here, where there's sunshine, because as they say, sunshine is the best disinfectant. So this is what needs to happen. It needs to be brought out into the light so that people can see the reality. And that's on a collective, that's on a world scale, if you like, but it is also on an individual level as well. We all need to kind of clear out our own ghosts and our own emotional baggage so that we can move on in the way of it being healthier for us, and we can be happier with ourselves and our lives, making different decisions as we go, because we have released things that no longer really are good for us to keep in our emotional bodies. And once we manage to release these things from our emotional bodies, we can then move on in a lighter, like, you know, if you carry these huge suitcases around with you all the time, you're going to end up very worn out. So it is about kind of letting those suitcases go, like, you know, finally saying to yourself, I don't need them anymore. And the new moon in Scorpio is a great time to be doing that. And over the next 6 weeks, Mercury will dig deep. And as we say that, or as I say that, we have the moon card itself in the subconscious. So this is very much all related. All of this is related to the moon and to what's going on at this moment in time. Because the moon card is very much a kind of feeling of confusion and things being kept in the dark and us not being given the light. If you think of the new moon, it is a time of darkness. There is no moon. The sun is not reflecting on the moon because it's right next to it. And so until the moon is full again, which will happen for us in 14 days' time in Taurus, and the moon will be opposite the sun, and therefore the light will be able to be shone on the moon. But this is a time of being kept in the dark. This is the subconscious. This is the actual placement of this card, is the subconscious. And this is all about the subconscious realm. This is all about what we're not being told, what we're not being shown, what we're not being given the information for. All the things that we kind of, on some level, feel as though we need to know, because if we don't know these things, we can't properly make a decision. If you don't have all the information, how can you make a right decision? And this is the problem, is that we are all being kept in the dark at the moment. There is this time of being kept in the dark. And this, I feel, is going to continue over the next 6 weeks, or at least until Mercury turns direct again in November the 20th. And then we may start seeing things coming out to the surface a bit more. But up until that point, there is going to be this kind of feeling collectively and individually of, I thought I understood, but I don't think I do. And this can bring on this kind of feeling of like lunacy or insanity, this kind of madness within people, because they're trying their best, if you think of a jigsaw puzzle, to put the pieces together, but they've got missing parts. There's parts of this jigsaw puzzle that are missing, and therefore they're kind of thinking, oh, I thought I knew, but I don't, because I can't see the big picture. All I can see is bits of this and a bit here and that bit there, but it's not all coming together. So this is a time of being confused. That's where the confusion comes from. And also the kind of feeling of like insanity or lunacy can come from us trying to fit bits into the puzzle that we think should be there and how it should be, when actually the reality can be something completely different. And we're kind of saying to ourselves and questioning ourselves as to whether what we think is right is actually right, or is it a completely different story. And so that can kind of send you a little bit doolally, shall we say. You're trying to put the pieces together that don't necessarily fit. So the moon is in the subconscious position, so it's going to be a really strong player, I feel, over these next 2 weeks. The moon is going to have a big part to play. Moon, our emotions, the subconscious realm, and Scorpio new moon and Mercury going retrograde is all going to play a big part in this, of bringing up all this buried, very deep emotional issues. And the card that's moving away, it's been around for a while, and I'd say that this is, for me, this represents a kind of coming together card, in the sense of, fours for me always represent this kind of stability, this kind of, because again a 4 is a square. I mean, it can also be a rectangle, but it's a very kind of solid base, shall we say. So in this card, this is Jason, of Jason and the Argonauts fame, who went off and won the Golden Fleece. He here has gathered all these people around him to go off on this creative endeavour, and this boat is kind of waiting out here. For me, this card represents this boat represents the future, where we're going. And the future in many ways is unknown, but the boat is out there and it's waiting, and we can get on that boat, or we can say, well, no, actually, I'm just going to stay here and not do anything. So if we get on the boat and take the challenge, if you like, because it is a challenge to get on that boat and for us to go to places unknown that we don't know where it's going to take us. This card kind of reminds me in many ways of, I suppose, that need to, you can change things in your life if you really want to. Are you happy with it as it is? Do you want to stay with the tried, the trusted, the stable, the known, or would you rather get on that boat and have yourself a different kind of adventure, something that's maybe wild, maybe full of experiences that you've never had before, which can be, not only challenging, but also kind of like, a lot of us are fearful of change in our life. A lot of us are fearful of going through situations that we like to feel safe. We like to kind of stay in one place and know where we are. We may go on the odd holiday, but we have a home, we have a base, and we know where we're coming back to. But this card kind of says, there is plenty of other adventures out there if you're willing to jump on that boat and not just kind of stay with what you know. So for me, this card kind of represents that. Knowing that there's a future coming, knowing that your future can be different, but are you going to take that challenge? And this is as a collective as well. As a collective, we have the chance, if you like, to get on this boat and go on a new adventure, a new journey, to change what we've already created by moving away from the stable, which for me kind of is the very Saturn kind of, structure and holding things in place. Saturn rules time, he's the Lord of Karma. So that's how I see that card at this moment. And what we have moving in is the Hierophant. Now, in the Greek mythic tarot, the Hierophant represents the unknown, in the sense of he's not conventional. He's not like in most tarot cards. He would be seen as being the Pope, very traditional, very kind of conventional. In this particular card, this actually is represented by Chiron, who is the wounded healer in the Greek mythic stories. And for me, I see him very much as a Sagittarian energy, in the sense that he has this scroll here, which is all about higher learning, higher mind. It's very much to do with things that are not of the norm. Wisdom that is yet to be learnt. And for me, the kind of journey here, as this moves away, the collective is kind of moving into this unknown space, if you like, because of this boat representing our adventure. And what's coming up in 2020 is going to be so massive that it's going to change people's ways of not only viewing the world, but ways of working within the world. And I think this is what the Hierophant is kind of saying, that there's going to be a lot of change with our belief systems, our within our educational systems, and this kind of represents that whole higher mind, higher learning, education, justice systems. Look, what is coming down the road, we're going to need to be able to kind of find our inner light and light our own paths, because things could get very kind of into the realms of the unknown and the disbelief of what's actually going on around us. So this is what's moving in. I'm trying to think if there's any other messages coming through for this card. Is there anything else? Yeah, I just get the feeling that this is going to be opening up new paths. Opening up new paths is the message that I get here. Opening up new, unconventional paths that have not been allowed to be up to now. Okay. So the next energy that's coming in with the Ace of Pentacles is kind of, if you think of this as the situation where we are and this is the challenge, well, this is the energy around that challenge, if you like, and around the situation. And the Ace of Pentacles is a new energy. It's a new beginning. It's a new beginning. It's something fresh. It's something that's going to bring in prosperity, bringing a change of our fortunes, in the respect that we can have a new outlook. The Ace with the because it's Pentacles, it's all about the physical realm. It's all about how we create our I suppose really a monetary systems, but it's more than that. It's more than just monetary systems, because it's also about how we sustain ourselves, how we fulfill ourselves. This card is very fertile. It's very, this is kind of this Poseidon, I suppose, also known as Neptune, which also is playing a big part in what's going on up in the skies at the moment and down on our planet. Neptune also is retrograde in Pisces, so it's kind of been there for a long time now, going retrograde. But this card is saying that we can sustain ourselves. We do have the ability. I think this is what this is about. We have the ability to sustain ourselves, regardless of what we're told. The potential is there